Hey everybody, I'm Lee Shepard from Shep Fam Life, and we're going to be doing Fatherhood Friday, but we're doing a little bit different. This is going to be episode number 4, and I'm going to call it Wisdom with Tim Welty. I'm going to introduce my guest here. Tim and I were church mates up at Crossroads Church in Washington State. We moved down here in January, and he's still up there. Tim was involved in the men's ministry. Obviously, a good Christian man, a solid guy. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing
You, you,
fantastic.
you left me behind, went up to the sun, down to the sunshine, and left me in the dust. Way to go.
So it is about 30 degrees warmer here than you guys right now, but we don't have any snow, so I'm not complaining.
There you go.
But so I want to thank Tim for coming on. Obviously, taking time out of his day, but most importantly, Tim's got a lot of wisdom, and he's one of those guys as he's leading the men's groups up there. You could just it oozes out of him. So he's got that wisdom. He's got that fatherly wisdom that comes out. So as we're looking to expand this channel, I said, hey man, I want to bring on some high quality people, get different perspectives, and Tim is one of those guys. So super excited to ask him some questions. Again, as we're going through these questions, if you have any comments, post them below. I'll have Tim reach out and help answer some of those for you. Put him on the spot a little bit, and almost like quizzing the pastor. It's kind of fun like that. Um, so, question number 1, Tim. I'm just gonna fire these at you. Give me your answer. See what's going on. Easy question. How long you been a father?
Well, I would like to answer that by saying my son's whole life, but that's not entirely true. Um, the first little bit there, it was a struggle for me to figure out what fatherhood was. When he first came into the world, it was in a part of my life where I was backsliding quite a bit and stuff. So I was not the father that I would define father as for the first year or so of his life, which is a real bummer. But so how he's 14 years old. So for the past 14 years, I've been a father, but I'd say the past 13 of those, I've been a dad.
Okay, fantastic, man. Um, so when did you mentioned the backsliding part a little bit? When did that big change happen? Was it at about a year old?
About yeah, year and a half old or so as my dad was starting to pass.
Okay.
It was kind of a get your life together moment. You know,
and
you're
that,
not a kid anymore. You got responsibilities, other people to take care of. So
right. And that usually is how life happens, right? It kind of kicks you in the back and sends you down that road quicker than you think you need to, right?
sure.
So here we go. Follow up question. So if there's one thing for the dads out there, if you could offer some kind of encouragement, what would it be?
So I'm not. I don't think anybody's surprised. You did give me the questions beforehand, so I did do a little bit of thinking on this, and I came to being there is a big deal.
Okay.
Just being there for your kids, being in your kids' lives, and I don't know if this is really the spot for it or not, but I'm going to do it anyways. Some statistics are 1 in 4 U.S. children are raised in a fatherless home, and 85% of our prisons are compromised or comprised of children who grew up in a fatherless home. And children without a father are 4 times more likely to be living in poverty. And children from fatherless homes are twice as likely to drop out from school. And children from fatherless homes are 2 times more likely to commit suicide. That's twice as likely. And just with how our culture is and the amount of fatherlessness that we have and kind of how you see that bleed into what we're seeing in the culture, be there. Be there for your kids. That's the encouragement that I think, there's a lot of things beyond that, but that's the big one.
Which is interesting because the Christian solution is a godly family with two parents raising a kid with biblical values, right? And yet that's
Yeah.
always rejected as the correct answer. The answer is more government programs, more spending. It's never, hey man, let's go back to the way this was supposed to be, which is like you said, having a father in the home and leading by example, right?
Yeah, all of the numbers bear out the exact opposite of what we're trying to do as a culture. We need to go back to tradition and father, mother rearing children, and that's kind of the fabric of society, at least a good one.
Right. Nope, absolutely. And so obviously we want to focus on biblical solutions to all these problems that we're talking about. Question number two I had for you is, what's an encouragement that you find in Scripture um, that's going to help us out as dads?
Yeah, I first thought of First Thessalonians 2 and specifically 11 and 12, which is, for you know that we dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own children, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and glory. So that's the apostles talking to the church, but in reference of, hey, we spoke to you and dealt with you as fathers do with their children. Um, and it was pretty simple things that they laid out, encouraging, comforting, and urging you to that godly lifestyle. Uh, so those are big things, I think, but they're also simple things. We encourage your kids, urge them to the right lifestyle, and comfort them and be there for them. It's kind of being in their lives, and bringing God into the midst of the home.
So, episode one, we talked about reading scripture together with our kids, because obviously, raising them up in the Christian faith, having that discipleship, teaching them from a young age. That Proverbs 22:6, where train a child up in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. And it's funny because there's some pushback on that, because in the Christian home, everyone thinks the kids are going to be perfect. But just like the prodigal son, there may be some wavering, but there's always those seeds planted in the back that are going to eventually grow. And we do see people come back to the faith, obviously a little bit older in life sometimes, when they wandered away. And so if we can impart that on our kids, they're already 90% ahead of the world's game, right?
That's exactly right. And I was going to go there first, but I thought that was going to be the obvious answer, so I wanted to do something a little different.
The answer is Jesus. That's right.
Yeah, Sunday school answer, Jesus. Whoop.
Sunday school answer, Jesus. Um, and so you have a 14-year-old now, so you're a little bit
I
ahead
do.
of me. My oldest is 13. The next one, and this is an interesting part as we go into the older years. We did a men's group study where they talked about the phases of raising children, from the young, where you have total control, to where you become more of a friend, and then more of a mentor, and eventually, when you're old, they take care of you, and that transition cycle. But question number three for you, Tim: what is the hardest part about raising kids?
That that's a tough question. For me personally, I think it's the fear of failure, if
Okay.
that makes sense. So, because that's not something that really has changed from when he was a really, really small baby till now. Um, I ultimately want my son to be a better man than I am. That's the goal of every dad, I think, is he would be a godlier man, be a better man, have a better outcome than me. But I I'm always concerned that I'm going to do something or say something that's going to put a barrier in the way of him achieving that, or just not be there enough, or not support him in the way that he needs, and all that stuff, of just that anxiety of and fear of failure. But on the flip side of that, there is the comfort in knowing that God's in control of it all. um he's gonna, as long as I focus my life on God first and have my priorities straight, then he's going to guide my path, guide my parenting, guide my son and my wife and us all collectively together in the same direction. It's just when I stray from that and try to do things in my own hand that I risk uh, screwing things up, which, you know, it's still, it's that flesh spirit battle, just on a
Well, and
different thing.
yeah, and I didn't get an instruction manual. I'm guessing you didn't get an instruction manual when you became a dad. Um, and so it is literally finding the best information you can and applying that to your kid, and every kid's different, and then trying to swim those waters of sharks to make sure that they make it into adulthood. Ideally, that they know Jesus, they know the scriptures, but that's not just a clear cut path. That is zigzags and crocodiles in the water and all kinds of you know. It is not an easy path that I've learned.
Yeah, yeah.
If
So
it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
that's exactly right. Yeah, that's just honesty, I guess, into my brain and my anxieties. But yeah,
But I think that the value in having a real conversation about raising kids is that everyone else that's out there that says, "Well, I don't think I'm the best dad." Well, guess what? None of us are the best dad, right? I'm as we started this part of Shep Fam life, I said, "Hey man, I'm going to impart some of the wisdom that I've learned as a father, but I've learned it through other dads that are, sharing some of that wisdom with me." So it's not all I got this big brain full of biblical knowledge. It's hey, I watch other people go through stuff, and I've just kind of been able to glean a little bit of that, which is how we got Mr. Tim Welty, wisdom with Tim Welty this
yeah.
episode.
You do got a pretty big brain, though. You're a pretty smart feller.
Well, I got a big hat to cover it up, but that I'm bald. So, question number 4, a little bit more of a fun one. We'll see where he goes with it. If you're king for a day, what do, Mr. Tim?
Okay. Automatically, the shopping cart non-returners, okay, they're going to be in for some indentured servitude, some serious hard labor. Um, that's day one stuff right there. If you don't put your shopping cart back in the corral, if you leave it in the parking lot, I mean, you got to pay that debt back to society. That's community service for a long time, and it's some hard labor. I don't know what exactly we're going to have you do, but it's not going to be fun.
So when I lived in Brownsville, I used to say, "Oh, it's people from Brownsville that don't do it." But I tell you, as I live across the nation, there's a lot of people that do it. It's not just Brownsville.
Yeah, that's just the basic test of being a decent human. It doesn't, it's your cart that you grabbed out, right? And you used it and you brought it to your vehicle and loaded your groceries in the vehicle. And then you're just going to leave that for somebody else, or you're going to walk the 5 extra steps to put it back in the corral. It just irks me, man.
So hey, sometimes they're 10 feet away, Tim. That's
I
after
know.
shopping, after a mile and a half, 2 miles of shopping. I mean, that extra 10 foot is just too far, too far.
Oh man. Oh man.
So
Yeah.
king for a day. That's the one problem you're going to solve.
That's the first one for sure.
What's
Yeah.
number 2? You got number 2?
Number 2, I would say we're we'll go with one my dad used to say is there's going to be no kissing on the dancing floor,
Okay.
and there'll also be no dancing on the kissing floor.
Okay. Hey, there we go.
I'd
uh,
be a terrible king, by the way.
what's that?
I'd be a terrible king. You wouldn't want me as a king.
So question number 5, which is funny because I had no idea where he was going to go with that question, so that's why we like to have some fun here. So, number 5, what is something that you learned from your own father that you now use in your own parenting?
Yeah, my dad was a fantastic dad. I learned a ton about what to do, and I learned a few things about what not to do. But the big things, get on their level and really talk with them, spend time with them on their level, play with them, that sort of thing. But then another big thing that really I didn't realize meant a lot to me until I was older, but when your father does wrong by you and then gets down on your level and actually apologizes for what he did, um, that's huge. And now as a dad, that's hard to do. Uh, it really is hard to apologize and ask for forgiveness when you wrong your son or your child. Um, I don't know why it is, but it
Piece,
is.
piece of that humble pie.
Yeah, yeah. Because you want them to think of you as Superman,
Right.
and but but yeah, it bridges that separation of I don't know.
It,
It humility into it, I guess. Yeah, it's important.
it is funny too when your older kids are able to realize the hypocrisy of something that you're doing, right? Like you can't have a soda because you need to go to sleep. Well, Dad, you just had a soda, and you have that instant moment of like, well, I can, but you can't. But if they're principles that transcend everything, that's not a great answer, right? No, no
Right.
one wants to be told I can and you can't without a good valid reason, right?
Sure. And we should be encouraging, like, not necessarily questioning your authority or anything, but just using logic and reason, and those types of things are great for us to nurture. And
Absolutely.
also, it's good for them to see that we mess up too, and how it's an example of how to go about handling mistakes, handling uh, things like that.
So I will say
Kids,
on that front, I do like the questions coming at me, right? Because I feel like if I can't justify something, then there's a behavior that I need to change.
I'm with you. Yeah, I like getting challenged on my worldview, even if it's from my kid and about soda.
Right. Right. So on that question, and it is funny how things stick with you. I spent a lot of time with my dad. He was a mechanic, and his shop was like 2 blocks from where we grew up. So we used to walk this kind of back alley to his shop all the time. And I was probably, my memory is not very good, but I was probably like 12 years old. And I remember walking one day, and I don't even know how it came up, but I told my dad I will never work at a McDonald's, right? Just 12 years old. We'll assume I was 12 years old, full of confidence and arrogance, saying, I'm never going to work at a McDonald's. And I remember my dad looking at me and he said, if you need to support your family, you'll work anywhere you have to. And it just, like, whatever that statement was, like, it just blew me away. And it's one of those things I remember to this day. Like, if you have to work as a dad or as a father and support your family, I'd go dig a ditch. I'd go donate blood. I mean, whatever it takes. I'd go work at a McDonald's. It's not even a question now. But at 12 years old, just full of confidence, I was thinking, I'll never do that. And his words just like snapped me back into reality.
Yeah, Shepherd's Septic Service, right?
Yeah, we pump them. So for you guys that don't know, I've been looking at other businesses, and septic pumping was definitely high on my list. So we'll see if that ever becomes a reality. But
That'd be cool.
pumping them septic tanks $500 at a time, making that cash money.
Yeah, doing the jobs nobody wants to do.
Absolutely.
And
And there's we need people to do it right now, obviously. So
obviously,
um the well, Tim, that is the last question I had for you today. And so ultimately, I want to just say thank you so much, obviously, for pouring into me and our time that we were together up there. Tim really has a heart for the Lord, and he has a lot of wisdom. So I hope we can have you back on the channel at some point. Um, and really, I think you're an encouragement to everyone that's going to watch this, because they're going to see that we're just two dads struggling through this process of raising kids up into godly children, and in trying to get them to have a full understanding who Jesus is, what He's done for us, and really the goal is to be a forever family in heaven with Him. Right? Is that where we're going, Tim?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. So with that being said, thank you so much, Tim, for being with us. If you have any questions or comments, post them below. We'll get back with Tim. We'll get those answered for you. And thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It's Shep Fam Life, Fatherhood Fridays. This is episode number 4, Wisdom with Tim Welty. Thanks so much for being with us, Tim.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate the time.